An old wolf approaches a dying Mustang foal and does something unthinkable. The desert stretched endlessly before Amelia, a vast, golden sea of sand that shimmered under the harsh sunlight. Her camera clicked softly as she captured the sweeping beauty of the landscape, the wind whispering secrets only the desert could understand. For Amelia, wildlife photography wasn't just a job. It was her passion, her lifeline to a world that existed just beyond human comprehension. She had always been drawn to the wild places, where animals roamed free and untouched by the hand of civilization. Yet today, her heart was heavy with worry. Amelia had ventured out farther than usual, following a faint trail of hoofprints in the sand that seemed to beckon her. It wasn't a typical sight in these parts. Wild foals rarely wandered this far into the desert. But something had pulled her here, an invisible thread, leading her deeper into the unforgiving terrain. And then she found it. A small foal lay crumpled on the ground, its body trembling with pain. Echo, she would later name it, a delicate creature, too young to be so broken, too innocent to have met the harshness of the world so soon. Its pale coat was stained with blood, and its breathing was shallow, labored. Amelia's breath caught in her throat as she dropped to her knees beside the foal, her camera forgotten in her hands. "Hey, little one," she whispered softly, her voice cracking. The foal's amber eyes flickered open, meeting hers with a glimmer of recognition. Amelia felt a rush of urgency flood her veins. She had to save it. There was no time to waste. But as she reached for her medical kit, a low growl echoed through the silence. Amelia froze. Slowly, she turned her head, her heart hammering in her chest. Out of the shadows of a nearby rocky outcrop, a figure emerged. It was massive, its silhouette defined by the setting sun behind it. A wolf. The creature was ancient, its fur a mix of grays and whites, its eyes sharp and intense. Amelia's heart skipped a beat. Ragnar. The wolf was an enigma, a creature of legend in these parts. Stories had circulated for years about a lone wolf who roamed the desert, a survivor of countless battles with the harsh elements. But to see him in the flesh, it was almost surreal. And what he did next would change everything. Instead of the predatory instinct Amelia expected, Ragnar approached the foal with a strange gentleness. His eyes softened as he lowered his massive head to Echo's side, nudging the foal carefully with his nose. Amelia watched in awe, her breath caught in her throat. The wolf, the very creature that was supposed to hunt this defenseless animal, was now protecting it. It didn't make sense. Wolves were predators. Foals were prey. But here was Ragnar, the embodiment of the wild, choosing to defy instinct. He lay down beside Echo, curling his body protectively around the fragile creature. Amelia's mind raced. Was this just a momentary curiosity? Or was there something deeper happening here? She knew she had to act fast. She couldn't let Echo die in the desert. But with Ragnar so close, she feared the worst. Would the wolf allow her to help? Would he see her as a threat to his newfound companion? The struggle for survival had just begun, not just for Echo, but for the unlikely bond that was beginning to form between the two, one that would challenge everything Amelia thought she knew about the world of predators and prey. And so, as the desert sun dipped below the horizon, casting a crimson glow over the land, a new story began, one of compassion, defiance, and the powerful connection between two creatures from entirely different worlds. As the days passed, the unlikely bond between Ragnar and Echo deepened. Amelia couldn't tear her eyes away from the pair, watching in awe as the wolf, once the epitome of primal survival, now acted with an unprecedented tenderness. Ragnar would nudge Echo gently when the foal struggled to rise, his large paws steadying the fragile creature. He would lie beside Echo, his body forming a shield against the cold desert nights. And when Echo whimpered in pain, Ragnar would sit vigilantly by the foal's side, his ears pricked, alert to any danger that might come their way. Amelia couldn't help but marvel at the profound role Ragnar played in the foal's healing. She had expected the wolf to be a silent, perhaps fleeting observer, but instead, he had become Echo's protector. There was no aggression, no sign of predatory instinct, just quiet, patient care. It was as if Ragnar understood that Echo's survival depended not on the harsh laws of the wild, but on something far rarer, compassion. Her team, too, couldn't help but be drawn into the mystery. One by one, they observed the pair, unable to look away from this extraordinary relationship unfolding before them. "Do you see it?" said Clara, one of Amelia's assistants, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's like Ragnar. He's treating Echo like his own cub." The words hung in the air, heavy with disbelief. Could it really be? Was this wolf capable of empathy? It was unheard of. Wolves were creatures of instinct, bound by the cold laws of nature that demanded they hunt and kill to survive. Yet here was Ragnar, offering protection and solace to the very creature he should have viewed as prey. Amelia's heart fluttered with a mixture of wonder and excitement. "We need to document this," she said, her voice soft but resolute. "This could change everything we know about animal behavior." The more they observed, the more they questioned the predator-prey dynamic they had always accepted as fact. Amelia began to feel a growing sense of responsibility, as if the world needed to see what she was witnessing. What if this bond between Ragnar and Echo wasn't just an anomaly? What if it was a new understanding of how animals could coexist, not through violence, but through mutual respect and care? However, not everyone shared Amelia's sense of awe. Dr. Lucas Walker, the veterinarian leading the medical team, was unconvinced. The seasoned scientist and animal expert had built his career on the foundation of empirical evidence and hard science. To him, Ragnar's actions didn't align with anything he had studied in the wild. "This is not natural behavior," Dr. Walker insisted, pacing back and forth as he examined the wolf from a distance. "Wolves are predators, and they are driven by instinct, not emotion. This idea that Ragnar is protecting Echo it's hard to accept, Amelia. It defies everything we know about animal instincts." Amelia, standing firm in her beliefs, met Dr. Walker's skepticism with calm determination. "But isn't that the point, Lucas? What if instincts aren't the only thing guiding animals? What if there's more to it than survival? Ragnar's actions go beyond simple instinct. He's making a choice. He's showing care, something more than a predator's need to kill." Dr. Walker crossed his arms, his brow furrowed. "You're talking about empathy in a wolf? That's a leap. Empathy requires higher cognition, something that most animals, including wolves, simply don't have." "Maybe we've been looking at it all wrong," Amelia replied, her eyes fixed on Ragnar, who was now lying beside Echo, his head resting protectively on the foal's flank. "What if empathy isn't a human-exclusive trait? What if animals can feel things we've underestimated?" The conversation left a tension hanging in the air, as both sides dug into their positions. Amelia felt the weight of the moment. She wasn't just advocating for a change in scientific perspective. She was challenging a fundamental belief about the way the animal kingdom operated. And in doing so, she was staking everything on the hope that the relationship between Ragnar and Echo wasn't just a fluke, but the beginning of a new understanding. Amelia couldn't help but think about how this discovery could revolutionize the way humans approached wildlife conservation. What if they could create spaces where animals like Ragnar and Echo could live freely, unburdened by the pressures of predation and survival? The more she thought about it, the clearer the vision became. There had to be a way to protect wild creatures, to let them keep their natural instincts while also offering them sanctuary from the harsh realities of the outside world. But first, they had to convince others. Amelia knew that the path forward wouldn't be easy. Dr. Walker's doubts were just the beginning. If they were going to protect Echo and Ragnar, they'd need to prove that this extraordinary bond wasn't just a fluke, but a new chapter in understanding the very nature of animals themselves. As the days wore on, Ragnar's decline became increasingly evident. The once mighty wolf, with his sinewy muscles and quick reflexes, now moved with a slow, deliberate gait. His once steady eyes, sharp and fierce, were now clouded with age. The strain of guarding Echo, of constantly protecting the fragile foal, had begun to take a physical toll on him. He could no longer stay awake for hours on end, watching over the foal. Instead, he would retreat into the shadows, his breathing heavy and labored. Echo, too, had grown, and while his legs were stronger, he still needed Ragnar's constant presence to feel secure. The foal began to nudge the wolf more frequently, as if reassuring him, returning the comfort he had once given. The bond between the two, already remarkable, deepened further. But it was clear, Ragnar could not continue this level of protection indefinitely. The wolf's age, his body failing him, could no longer keep pace with his desire to care for the foal. Amelia watched it all unfold with a mixture of sadness and awe. Every day, she saw Ragnar's energy waning, and with it, her hope that this miraculous connection could survive in the wild without help. She had never imagined that she would become so attached to the animals she was supposed to be observing. The line between observer and protector had blurred long ago, and now, more than ever, Amelia knew her role had shifted. It was during one of these quiet moments, when Ragnar lay beside Echo, breathing heavily, as the foal nuzzled him gently, that Amelia had her breakthrough. The desert sun was setting, casting long shadows over the pair, and a thought, once fleeting, now seemed like the only solution. She turned to Dr. Walker, her face tense with the urgency of the decision she was about to propose. "We need to create a sanctuary," she said, her voice steady but filled with conviction. "A place where Ragnar and Echo can live without the pressures of the outside world. Free from predators, free from the threat of humans encroaching on their territory." Dr. Walker's eyebrows shot up in disbelief. "A sanctuary? For a wolf and a foal? That's unprecedented, Amelia. We can't just put them in a zoo. They've had their place in the wild." "I know," she interrupted, her eyes filled with determination. "But the wild is no longer a safe place for them. Not with Ragnar aging and Echo still so vulnerable. They've proven that they can exist beyond the laws of nature, that compassion isn't bound by instinct. But if we don't act now, we risk losing them both." Amelia's words hung in the air, heavy and full of urgency. She had seen enough to know that this bond, this incredible, unexpected bond, deserved more than just observation. It deserved preservation. The wild had become a hostile place for creatures like Ragnar, whose age made survival increasingly difficult, and Echo, whose very existence had once been precarious. They needed a home, a sanctuary where they could live without fear, where their unique connection could flourish, and where they could be protected from the dangers of the world they once knew. The emotional weight of the proposal hit Amelia all at once. As she stood there, watching Ragnar's slow breathing and Echo's innocent nuzzles, the realization washed over her like a wave. She wasn't just observing an incredible moment of nature. She wasn't simply the witness to an extraordinary bond. She was becoming part of their story, part of their future. And with that understanding came a deep, painful sense of responsibility. She wasn't just a photographer anymore, capturing moments from a distance. She was now a guardian. The fear of failing them, of watching this incredible connection slip away because of something as uncontrollable as time and biology, hit her like a thunderclap. The wolf and the foal had given her a glimpse of something greater, something more meaningful than any photograph could capture. They had shown her the possibility of compassion transcending nature's boundaries. And now, she had to act. "I can't just stand by and watch Ragnar fade away," Amelia whispered, more to herself than to anyone else. "He deserves a chance to live out his days without this strain. And Echo, he deserves to grow up, to have a future where he's safe." The emotional conflict that tore through Amelia was something she hadn't anticipated. She had come to document a story, to witness the extraordinary, but somewhere along the way, she had become part of it. She had grown to love Ragnar, his stoic strength and unexpected tenderness, and she had come to see Echo not just as a subject, but as a creature with a future, one that was fragile and precious. She had to protect them. She had to save them. She wasn't sure how, but she knew that without her intervention, without the sanctuary, they would not survive in the world that had once been their home. "I'll do it," Amelia said, her voice steady with newfound resolve. "I'll do whatever it takes to make sure they have a future together." Dr. Walker looked at her, his skepticism evident, but something in Amelia's eyes, something raw and determined, made him pause. "You're serious," he said quietly. "You really think this will work?" Amelia nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. "I have to believe it will." And in that moment, she knew her journey was no longer about capturing the story. It was about changing the future. For Ragnar, for Echo, for all the creatures whose stories still needed telling. The days following Amelia's proposal were a whirlwind of action. Plans were drawn up, resources allocated, and the foundations of the sanctuary were set. The desert landscape, once a harsh and unforgiving place, was transformed into a haven. Amelia worked tirelessly, rallying a team of wildlife conservationists, volunteers, and veterinarians who shared her vision of providing Ragnar and Echo with a life away from the threats of predators, poachers, and encroaching human development. The sanctuary was designed to blend seamlessly into the desert's natural beauty, allowing Ragnar and Echo to live in an environment where they could still roam freely, but without the constant danger of being hunted or disturbed. A vast, fenced-in area, filled with rolling hills and rocky outcrops, was built to mirror the wild, with large, open spaces for both animals to wander, but with ample shelter and food provided to ease their burdens. The team worked day and night, constructing secure enclosures and feeding stations, all while ensuring that the sanctuary respected the natural flow of the desert environment. Ragnar, although weaker than before, was still a steadfast protector. He continued to stay close to Echo, guiding him with gentle nips and nudges, always watching over the foal with a fierce dedication. Echo, for his part, grew stronger by the day. His once fragile legs now carried him with confidence, and his coat had thickened, transforming him into a robust young horse. But despite his growth, he still relied on Ragnar in ways that no one could have predicted. At night, the nightmares would come, visions of his early struggles, of the trauma he had endured, and Echo would wake in a cold sweat, his heart pounding with fear. It was during these times that Ragnar's role as protector was most apparent. The wolf would curl up beside the foal, his body a comforting presence that soothed Echo's racing heart. In those quiet, moonlit moments, the unlikely duo formed a bond that went beyond the physical. It was a bond built on trust, on shared pain, and on an understanding that transcended words or instincts. Ragnar was more than a protector. He had become a symbol of safety, of resilience, and of compassion in the face of adversity. But as much as they found peace within the sanctuary's walls, the world outside was never truly at rest. One fateful night, under the cover of darkness, a group of horse thieves made their move. They had heard rumors of the foal's unique upbringing and were desperate to claim him for their own purposes. They thought that by stealing Echo, they could sell him for a hefty sum. What they didn't realize, however, was that they were about to encounter something far fiercer than they had anticipated. Ragnar, sensing the danger long before the thieves made their approach, sprang into action. His aging body may have been slower, but his instincts remained razor-sharp. As the thieves attempted to scale the sanctuary's fence, Ragnar was already there, standing tall and defiant. The sound of his growl echoed through the night, a warning to anyone who dared to approach. When the thieves tried to make their move on Echo, the old wolf leapt into the fray, teeth bared and claws extended, protecting the foal with a ferocity that defied his years. The confrontation was brutal. Ragnar fought with every ounce of strength he had left, refusing to let the foal be taken from him. The thieves, stunned by the wolf's courage and strength, scrambled to escape, leaving Echo unharmed but rattled by the close call. Ragnar, however, was not unscathed. His body bore the marks of the struggle, scratches, bruises, and exhaustion. Yet he stood tall, his eyes fierce as he made sure the thieves were long gone before he returned to Echo's side. The incident left a lasting mark on both animals and humans alike. News of Ragnar's heroism spread like wildfire, capturing the hearts of people around the world. Social media posts, news articles, and documentaries were created to honor the old wolf's bravery. He became a symbol of strength, compassion, and the enduring power of unlikely bonds. The sanctuary's reputation grew, attracting support from wildlife organizations and animal lovers from every corner of the globe. Amelia watched as Ragnar's story touched the hearts of millions. People who had once seen wolves only as threats now saw them as protectors, as beings capable of empathy and loyalty. Donations flooded in, helping to expand the sanctuary and ensure that it could continue to provide a safe haven for not just Ragnar and Echo, but for other animals in need of protection. Ragnar's legacy was cemented as a hero. His actions that night had solidified his place not just in the sanctuary, but in the hearts of all who heard his story. And as for Echo, he would grow up with the knowledge that he had been saved not just by one animal, but by the extraordinary bond between a wolf and a foal, an unbreakable connection that had defied the odds and reshaped the way the world saw the natural world. In the end, the sanctuary was more than just a physical space. It became a testament to the power of compassion, the strength of unlikely friendships, and the belief that love and protection can come from the most unexpected places. And for Ragnar, the old wolf who had risked everything to protect the foal, the reward was not just the safety of Echo, but the knowledge that his story would live on forever, inspiring others to believe in the impossible. As the months passed, the sanctuary grew into a thriving haven, a place where the harsh desert landscape no longer held the same sense of isolation and danger it once did. What had begun as a small, modest shelter for two unlikely companions blossomed into a symbol of hope and compassion, not just for Ragnar and Echo, but for countless animals in need of protection. International support flooded in. Donations, grants, and endorsements poured from wildlife organizations, animal lovers, and conservationists from across the globe. News of Ragnar and Echo's bond continued to spread, inspiring a movement that emphasized the need for compassion in wildlife conservation and challenged old perceptions of predator-prey relationships. The sanctuary's success became a beacon of what was possible when empathy and love crossed boundaries, both human and animal. For Ragnar and Echo, their lives were no longer dictated by the constant threat of survival. They lived freely, their days filled with the simple joy of each other's company. Echo had grown strong and confident, no longer the fragile foal who had been abandoned and left to fight for survival. Under Ragnar's watchful eye, he had flourished, and in turn, Ragnar had found a new purpose, one not based on the instincts of a predator, but on the unconditional love of a protector. Together, they roamed the sanctuary's expansive meadows, often seen side by side, a living testament to the extraordinary bond they shared. But it wasn't just the animals who had been changed. Amelia, too, had transformed. She had started her journey as a wildlife photographer, documenting the beauty of nature from a distance. But now she was an advocate, a voice for those who could not speak for themselves. Her passion for the animals had deepened, and the sanctuary had become her life's work. Amelia had pushed for the creation of the sanctuary not just because it was a safe place for animals, but because she had witnessed firsthand the transformative power of compassion. The unlikely connection between a wolf and a foal had shattered the preconceived notions about animal behavior, showing that kindness and empathy were not just human traits. They were qualities that could be found across species. Amelia often stood at the edge of the sanctuary, watching Ragnar and Echo interact with a sense of awe and fulfillment. The world had witnessed their bond, and so many had been touched by their story. For Amelia, it was a constant reminder that even in a world that could sometimes seem cold and unforgiving, love and compassion could still thrive in the most unexpected of places. On the day of the sanctuary's official dedication, a ceremony was held to honor the animals, the volunteers, and all those who had made the sanctuary possible. The sun set low over the horizon, casting a warm golden light over the land. The air was still, filled with a sense of quiet reverence. Amelia stood at the front of a gathered crowd, her heart full as she looked at Ragnar and Echo, standing side by side. In her speech, Amelia spoke of the lessons she had learned from the two of them, lessons of empathy, of breaking free from instinctive behavior, and of the power of unlikely friendships. "What we've witnessed here," she began, her voice steady but filled with emotion, "is a story not of survival, but of compassion. A story of two creatures so different, yet so alike in their need for care and connection. It's a story that challenges everything we thought we knew about the animal kingdom, about love, and about the potential for good in the world." She paused, glancing at the audience, many of whom had followed Ragnar and Echo's journey from the very beginning. What we've learned, she continued, is that compassion doesn't have boundaries. It doesn't care about species or circumstance. It doesn't care about history or the roles we're born into. Compassion is universal. It can be found in the unlikeliest of places, in the unlikeliest of hearts. And it's this compassion that has brought us here today. The crowd was silent, moved by her words. In the distance, Ragnar and Echo wandered together, their movements slow and deliberate, as though understanding the significance of the moment. For a brief moment, everything seemed to align. The sun setting, the breeze rustling through the trees, and the two animals standing in perfect harmony, embodying the message of the sanctuary. As Amelia concluded her speech, she looked at Ragnar and Echo, and the emotions she felt were overwhelming. Ragnar and Echo remind us all, she said softly, that sometimes the most beautiful things come from the most unexpected places. The crowd erupted into applause, but for Amelia, the applause was secondary. The real reward had always been in witnessing the bond between Ragnar and Echo, in seeing them live freely, and in knowing that their story would inspire generations to come. The dedication ceremony was more than a celebration of the sanctuary's success. It was a symbolic final scene in a story that had begun with struggle and uncertainty, but had culminated in a legacy of compassion, strength, and the power of love. It was a reminder that, even in the wildest corners of the world, there was room for kindness, for unexpected friendships, and for the belief that empathy could transcend all boundaries. And as the stars began to twinkle above the sanctuary, Amelia stood with a heart full of hope, knowing that Ragnar and Echo's story had left an indelible mark on the world, one that would continue to inspire, challenge, and remind us all of the transformative power of compassion. When Ragnar first enters the story, he is a solitary figure, embodying the natural instincts of a predator. He roams the desert wilderness, keeping to himself, following the ancient rhythms of his species. His world is one of survival, governed by instincts that have been passed down through generations. In the beginning, Ragnar represents the wild, untamed forces of nature, a creature built to hunt, protect, and defend his territory. Ragnar's transformation is the heart of the story. Over time, his role shifts dramatically from that of a solitary predator to a devoted protector. The moment he lays eyes on the injured foal, Echo, something inside him changes. Driven by something deeper than instinct, Ragnar's relationship with Echo evolves into an emotional bond that transcends predator and prey. As he continues to guard Echo, the wolf becomes a symbol of tenderness and sacrifice. His character arc is one of redemption. As he gives of himself, sacrificing his own energy and safety for the foal, Ragnar transforms into a hero, proving that even the most feared creatures have the capacity for love and compassion. In the end, Ragnar's legacy is not just of survival, but of selfless protection, leaving a powerful mark on the world around him. Amelia begins the story as an observer. As a wildlife photographer, her role is to document the beauty of nature, capturing the wild through her lens but maintaining a professional distance. She is passionate about her work, but her connection to the animals she documents remains more intellectual than emotional. Her understanding of wildlife is scientific, seeing them as subjects to be captured rather than beings to be truly understood. Amelia's transformation is subtle, yet profound. Her initial detachment slowly gives way to a deep empathy as she witnesses the bond between Ragnar and Echo unfold. Her passion for photography evolves into a passion for advocacy, as she begins to understand the emotional intelligence of animals, something that challenges her previous perceptions. Amelia's journey is one of awakening, learning that the creatures she once observed from a distance possess the same emotional depth and need for connection as humans do. By the end of the story, she becomes an advocate for animal protection, no longer just capturing moments on film but fighting to protect those who cannot speak for themselves. Her character arc represents the power of witnessing compassion in action and the way that compassion transforms both the observer and the observed. Dr. Lucas Walker is a scientist at heart, grounded in facts and logic. When he first encounters Ragnar's unusual behavior, he is skeptical. As a veterinarian, He believes that animals behave according to their instincts, and he cannot fathom that a predator like Ragnar could act out of anything other than a calculated desire for self-preservation. His focus is on the physical, tending to Echo's injuries and ensuring that the foal survives, but he sees the wolf's protection as something unnatural, something to be questioned. As the story progresses, Dr. Walker's rigid, scientific approach is challenged by the undeniable bond he witnesses between Ragnar and Echo. Initially dismissive, he begins to see the wolf's actions not as a mere anomaly, but as something deeper, an emotional connection, one that defies logic and biology. His transformation is intellectual and emotional. He moves from a place of skepticism to one of open-mindedness, embracing the idea that empathy and compassion can exist outside the human realm. By the end, Dr. Walker not only accepts the reality of animal empathy, but he also becomes a proponent of it, understanding that animals have a rich emotional world that cannot always be explained through science. His arc is one of growth, as he comes to see that the boundaries of empathy and compassion are not as confined as he once believed. Ragnar and Echo's incredible journey shows us that empathy knows no boundaries, whether it's between species or individuals. Their story is a reminder of how powerful compassion can be, and how we can all play a role in protecting the creatures we share this world with. If you believe in the power of empathy and want to help protect endangered wildlife, consider supporting wildlife conservation efforts in your community or by donating to your local wildlife sanctuary. Every small action can make a world of difference. Together, we can ensure that stories like Ragnar and Echo's continue to inspire change, showing that the bond between animals and humans is one that transcends all odds.